Hail and well met! Welcome all to another of my art videos. For those of you who are new here, howdy! I'm Reeb, an Aussie-based artist and huge D&D nerd. I betcha you could already tell I like D&D a very normal amount. Speaking of D&D, that brings us to the topic of today's video. Today I will walk you through my process in drawing part of my group's Dungeons & Dragons party in the style of Critical Role's The Legends of Machina, the animated series. This one was a fun project that really tested my character design abilities. I wanted to challenge myself with something, and let me tell you, this was challenging alright. Now get yourselves comfy, get cozy by the campfire. I'll be going through some of the steps I took in designing these characters, but also just talking a bit about my D&D game and the show itself a heap as well. I was partly driven to draw my group in the style of the show, since both the campaign from the series and the campaign from my game are set in the same world of Exandria. So, fun stuff. Let's dive in. To start off from my D&D party, the Bloody Oath, we begin with the Halfling Bard, my character, Curio, the College of Whispers glam rock punk espionage anarchist. Whew, that was a mouthful. Curio is technically the latest addition to the crew, joining the party at level 10, and it has been a wild ride to level 17 since then. In this early stage, you can see as I go through sketching, then resketching, and cleaning up what is called in the biz a character turnaround. Turnarounds are the bread and butter of character design, the purpose of them being to serve as a guideline for the artists and animators to reference in production. So they're supposed to show off at least a full front angle, a side profile, or 3/4 angle, and of course, a back view. You may also be wondering what the lines across the page are for. They are also guidelines in a way. I use them as anchor points. The top of the head, nose, shoulders, hips, knees, bottom of the feet. This makes it easier for me to line up the 3 turnarounds I do, to keep the art, style, and model consistent. On the note of references, I definitely drew a lot of inspiration for Curio from the show itself. Obviously leaned into the whole bard bit that Scanlan and Kaylee pull off so well. I had made Curio well before I even caught up with Campaign 1 of Critical Role, so I was absolutely delighted when Kaylee first came onto screen because, hello? Little punk bard representation? I felt so seen. I reckon that Kaylee and Curio would be fast friends if they ever met in universe, you know? They definitely share a few drinks over their extremely similar abandonment issues, perhaps cover a few songs together, fun stuff like that. Now when it came to sketching out Curio's design for this project, I was fortunate enough to already have other art I'd done to reference from. It's important to note that I'd already gone through the process of designing their looks. I tossed up on going with her current My Chemical Romance inspired getup, or going for her original classic bard fit. I considered the details, the color schemes, and came to the conclusion that this was the design that best suited what I had planned. Also incredibly important to note, it is highly recommended to start a character design project with something of a mood board to take point from. I was pretty loosey-goosey with my boards since, like I said, I already had established art I've done at this campaign to use, but anytime I go to design a new character from scratch, trust and believe I am scouring sites like Pinterest. I also referenced other Critical Role lore in Curio's creation in their background. Not many have heard of it, but I made Curio a Grinner, a member of the Golden Grin. The Grin is more or less a secret society of anti-authoritarian revolutionary bards. There's a small reference to this in the tattoos I've given him. The word grin, tattooed across the knuckles of the right hand. Bit on the nose, don't you think? When it came to Curio's artwork in this project, I wanted to convey a few things through their design. I leaned into using a lot of sharp, nearly triangular shapes and lines because I wanted to put across this feeling of this bard being quite, well, literally sharp. Sharp-witted, sharp with a knife, that shape language just felt right for the character. I also wanted to contrast that edge with their bright, clowncore color palette. Working on Curio's expression sheet was a treat. I wanted to capture a few different sides of this little halfling bard. They are, for the most part, all clever jokes, smiles, and flirtations, but trust and believe that the bard with a passive insight of 24 has a few things up their sleeves. Come on, we're talking about the College of Whispers here, man. On to the wizard of our party, Alana, the elven, blade-singing, unhinged wine-aunt of our chaotic little cohort. Fun fact, she is technically a princess of Uthodurn, a part of her character that I tried to incorporate into the design. When it came to designing Alana's appearance, there were a few reference points I leaned on from the animated series, such as Allura Vysoren and Vexalia. Those characters both carry a sense of poise that I wanted to capture in Alana, plus Allura being a wizard herself, the vibes were all there. Also, hi Allura! I love her, she's so powerful and pretty. With Alana's design, I found myself leaning into this shape language idea of an hourglass, for several reasons, most notably as a nod to her wizardly arcane abilities. Additionally, although the prosthetic arms design has been simplified for this project, the actual arm itself in-game has a strange hourglass shape embedded into that shoulder socket. So, hourglass sort of became an Alana motif to me. I wanted Alana's appearance to read as a few things. Traditionally elvish, since she is somewhat ancient, arcane, because wizard, but also practical. I gave her boots for adventuring about in, with a little heel for some stylistic flair. And you may think she is wearing some skirts here. Well, psych.
Look at this new dress my mom bought me. Psych! It's a jumpsuit. You were fooled.
Gotcha. I actually had culottes or wide-legged Hakama style pants in mind. When it came to the color palette, I felt strongly inclined towards blue. Blue just feels so much like a wizard color. It also feels a little rich and royal, and I feel overall meshed nicely with the brown tones on all her other accessories. Alana is such a fun member of the party and has one of the funniest but also heartbreakingly sweet relationships with my bard Curio. While Alana does have her own son, it has become quite clear that at times she very much sees Curio as a child who needs protecting too. Despite Curio's protests, it's led to a lot of exasperated lectures in game, and Curio may roll her eyes a lot about it. However, deep down, There is definitely a part of them that appreciates having some sort of guardian figure in their life again, even if they do annoy the hells out of each other every so often. Part of this project that proved to be a real test was keeping the line work as consistent as possible. The Legends of Vox Machina art style has these clean, thin lines that are, well, a bit out of my creative comfort zone. I do recommend, when working on precise line art like this, to take a lot of breaks and stretch your hands frequently. I don't usually do work like this, so the hours of delicate lining really caught up with me and my wrist. Additional advice: do not try to get every line absolutely bloody perfect. It's quicker to overshoot a line than clean it up, as opposed to tediously drawing, erasing, and so forth just for one perfect line. While line confidence is a great skill, working like that for me would be absolute madness. And now, onto the party's beloved dwarven pirate cleric of Chord, Othrin. He is certainly a fun one as well. He was also the first out of the set that I actually designed. There was something about this picture of him that I already had in my head. Probably the "God, pirates are so freaking cool" bias I have. It's a good thing that in our campaign, we've bumped into quite a few pirate crews now. Even popping by Darktoe for a stint to try patch things up between Othrin and some of his old contacts there. Othrin's design was relatively simple and straightforward. He is a practical man, and I wanted his kit to read that way. A simple chest plate and braces for armor, loose pants and a red sash for that pirate fit, plus a loop of rope, because I figure a sailor type would always carry something as practical as rope with them. The necklace he wears as well is a simplified version of his holy symbol to Chord. Are him and his god Chord the best of mates? Not really. But they work together well enough, so... I took from a few references for our old mate Othrin here, across the board from live action shows like Black Sails and Vikings, as well as from other animated series such as Dragon Age Resolution. I really liked how they designed their dwarven characters from that, and it also shares style similarities with The Legend of Vox Machina, so it felt like a fantastic reference point. When it came to drawing these shorter races, such as the dwarves, halflings, and gnomes, I also wanted to make sure they had proper proportions. Dwarves, for example, I draw as stockier, with larger ears, noses, and hands. Most of that applies to how I draw halflings too. It's my personal preference, but I don't want these characters simply looking like humanoid proportioned, except strangely shrunken down and teeny tiny. I think a lot of details, such as character expressions, could get easily lost that way. Another character turnaround tip. You've seen me do it a few times now, this cheeky trick when it comes to drawing a character's front and back. I personally struggle with drawing the front and back views consistently, like uniformed, if that makes sense. And one trick I was taught to assist as a tool was to first draw the front angle, then, when that was complete, copy it, paste it, and flip the art. From there, go on with the eraser, clear the space, and then get into it and start drawing over. What this does is set up the outline of the back angle, all the important anchor points that you can then fill in and adjust. A lot easier than trying to do it all completely freehand. That is quite the skill. Ooh, now when it comes to the finer details like his color palette, I did find myself gravitating to blues again. For Othrin, I wanted something a bit more desaturated, grey, and kind of stormy, since, you know, he's a Tempest cleric of the Storm God. Dude's gotta look a little stormy. And I tell you what, I reckon those tired eye bags definitely helped to sell it. Those are there for a reason though. A specific reason. I simply imagine he is, well, tired. considering he's the cleric of our party, but also considering how many times he has faced death or straight up died himself. This is also the reasoning behind the black streaks through his hair and running up his neck, leftover scarring from his last brush with the other side. Finally onto the party art! Yay! Going into this piece, I already had a vision in mind and had refined it with some references and a few sketches. This bar scene was itching to come to life. It feels like such a peak character moment for these three. Alana lecturing Curio, who's definitely taking the piss out of it, and poor Audrin caught in the crossfire. This piece took me probably the longest time out of the set. It really taught me a lesson in project planning. I think because I was in such a rush to get all of this done, I skipped a few important planning steps, like I didn't thumbnail this or test the overall values and contrast of the piece, and I filled in the background without a real idea in mind, just twiddled away until it felt right. In future, I'm going to be sure to plot everything out before diving in. Overall, it was a delight to work on. I love Dungeons & Dragons. I love making art of this game, of these characters. It scratches a real creative itch I find hard to scratch anywhere else. Like, storytelling is so cool. Playing this make-believe fantasy game collaboratively with mates is the best. I'd love to actually know, gang, how many of you also play in TTRPG games? And if so, what kinds? I'm all ears. That does, however, bring us to the end of the video. Thank you so much to all of you who've stuck around. I hope you've enjoyed your time. This kind of content is all very new to me still. There's a lot I'm figuring out as I go, so I love any constructive feedback if you have some to share. Like, do you want to see more D&D related art content? Maybe some art advice videos? I've already got a few ideas brewing, so keep your peepers open for that in the future. Do remember to subscribe if you'd like to catch more of my work, or leave a like if you've enjoyed this. It goes a long way in supporting my channel and helping me get it off the ground. And as always, a massive shout out to my supporters on Patreon. It really means the world to me. It's with my patron support that I can continue to do what I do. So if you'd like to find out more about said Patreon, please go check out the link to my page in the description below. Thanks again, folks. Sincerely wishing you all the best of luck in your future adventures. Fare thee well.